Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this May 5th, 2015 day on our calendar. A lot of fives today, right? I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and you're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. You can catch my show, not literally catch it, but you can listen to it every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Great title for a radio station. Unfortunately, we live in a world where there is no freedom of speech. But anyway, we try to tell people there is. But here I am on this show today, and it should be an interesting one because I have absolutely nothing planned. And isn't that usually the case when you plan something that never works anyway? So sometimes you just don't plan anything and things work out a lot better. For example, I listen a lot to, well, not a lot, but every guy has a way of introducing his radio show. And some say, hey, thanks for stopping by. I don't do that because I don't really give a darn if you stop by or not, really, deep down inside. I mean, if you want to, most people stop by anyway just by chance, so why should I thank you? Now, if you email me and say, hey, I'm coming by to see you, and I'll say, hey, thanks for stopping by. But anyway, I'm not going to say thanks for stopping by. And then we have guys that I tried to listen to a show the other night, and I don't do this very often. And the guy spent 10 minutes telling me what radio stations he's on. I mean, these stations on the internet are so ridiculous. I mean, there's like thousands of them. And I'm going to spend my time looking for 150. What is he trying to enamor himself by saying, hey, I'm really popular. I'm on 100 internet stations. Oh, give me a break. Popularity is not the key here. And so if you come to my show and you're going to expect to get thank yous and all that stuff, forget about it. All I want you to do is think sometimes about what I talk about and put it in your memory bank, because we've all turned into kind of like robots in this technology society, haven't we? We're the modern man. But put it into your memory bank. I don't know how you modern men get, do their thinking patterns these days. Do they have to have their computer on to think? Probably. But that's all right. We're progressing, aren't we? Yes, we sure are. We're getting so much better as a human race. And I did a calculation on the number of people that were killed in the last month in the world, and it far exceeded any people in history. Now, some people will say that's because there are more people on the earth. But if we're improving, we should have more people on the earth and less killing. But it usually is just the opposite. For example, we have a small percentage, I don't know what the percentage of the United States population of the world is. It's like 8%, 5%. Somebody call me and let me know exactly. But it's below 10. But we jail 25% of the world's population in supposedly a free country. Now, how does that work? I explained it to you on a couple of my shows, but people don't listen. They don't want to hear the hard truth because the truth is so mixed up these days. And it has been since the beginning of time, that you have to just forget about it. So what I say to people is I really professionally don't deal in the truth. I deal in telling you things, facts that have come across my desk that show me that there are certain people out there that understand things. And there are certain people out there that are getting jailed for absolutely no reason. Because we live in a crazy, crazy world. And I tried to explain it in my last couple of shows. And so I will paraphrase it. For example, we got a guy that I do a show about all the time, Tony Alamo. He's been in jail he's been sentenced to 175 years. And when you really check out the court case, and I do because I have a law degree, the reason people ask me, why'd you get a law degree if you're not practicing? And I said, well, that's interesting. Because when I was going to law school, I thought I might. And I was thinking that I needed something. It was kind of my second profession because my first one had bombed out. I chose to be a journalist. And I thought that as a young kid, thought that the freedom of speech, freedom of press, and I could really get to the bottom of the truth. I realized, after I spent 7 years in Rome, realized the CIA owned our newspaper there. I realized that I had made a big mistake. First of all, I don't make much money at this. And second of all, I'm in a corrupt profession that really is covering up the truth. Or not, well, that word is so elusive, I don't want to use it. It's covering up what's really going on in the world. Let's use that because truth is something that if you say it, there's so many, how many people have said the truth, they understand the truth. Every night everybody goes to bed, and when they put their little head on the pillow, that's the truth. And so how many millions of truths are there? So when you say that, it's really difficult. Now, what I try to get at is this. There are certain facts in the world that you look at. There are certain things you can read to understand how people in the past have dealt with this issue, and there are answers. There are answers that make it easy to figure out, and that's what I try in this show, to make things easy. Why complicate things? I went through this weekend was interesting. I received so many different emails on so many different things, from police interjecting policemen to become rioters. Then I was talking, I got emails about, we'll all be thugs, and it was showing all the connections of the terrorist organizations of the world. And then I got an email about why our food system and animals are dying in this country at enormous amounts of. No, it's incredible. It's the U.S. And somebody sent me and said, "Is the U.S. food supply cursed?" And then I got emails about Charles Manson and all these false flags, and finally my brain is going, all right, I know this is going on. It's been going on for thousands of years. Let's figure it out. Now, getting back to Tony Alamo, so what happens is I realize in journalism that I picked the wrong profession. Plus, I'm penniless, because you don't get much as a journalist unless you lie, like these guys on Fox News. I don't say lie. Basically, if they believe it long enough, it ain't a lie, right? That's the old theory of how do you beat a lie detector test. If you believe it's true, it's true. And some people can do that, and I bet you every one of those guys at Fox can do that, and I bet you Anderson Cooper and all those guys at CNN can do it too, because they believe it's true. Maybe they convince themselves just so they can sleep at night. Because if they just did a little bit of research on their own, and I'm not saying go to the internet, because that can be labeled as crazy. That's how they like to do it, even though there are some really good things on it. Just go spend some time in Rome. And you got connections. Get yourself down into the Vatican Library. The archives there. You can get in there. They'll probably let you in for a while, so you're on their team. And then spend a day in there, and I bet you'll find out that a lot of what I say in this show happens to have taken place in the world. And don't we have a right as human beings to know that? Not according to you guys. We have a right to know what you tell us. And that's usually how we function in this world. So here we go. So I find out I have to choose another profession. So I decide, you know what? I'm going to go into the law profession, because I already finished a year of law school before I got a journalism job, but I had to repeat it because it had been so long. And I said, I need a profession so I can survive when I get older as well. I can work on my own, take a case here and there that has nothing to do with world politics and affairs, and maybe help some guy get off a DUI or something. Okay. Do a little bit of good in a world full of evil. However, 9/11 happened to come right after I graduated from law school and I started writing again, and I never got back to it. Never really put myself into a situation for, where I had to really study for the bar and move into that profession. And that had been interesting if once I got in, whether I could have passed all the other little qualifications they had. And I'm sure if I got in, I'd be disbarred after a while anyway. So the fact is I chose the wrong one. But I can read a law case, and I spent a lot of time reading the Tony Alamo case, because I don't like to see people, since we jailed 25% of the human population in the world in a free country, I figured, let's use Tony as an example. And the guy's sitting there in 175 years in jail for bogus charges, a guy that's been trying to tell people about the Vatican for years, and that's the reason he's there. And he was successful as far as trying to help people as well. He started businesses to clothe people that were hungry, and he has an open mess hall every day for people that were starving. And that just can't happen in the Vatican. They've got to control all of the charitable organizations. And San Diego's a good example. Father, what's his name, Joe, runs this big, huge charitable organization. I'd like to see the percentages of money that go to the people, because I'm telling you, I've seen people on the street in San Diego, and I say, well, go over to Father Joe's and get a meal. Well, they can't get it every day. There's lines. Well, I told them, I said, Vatican has so much money. Tell them to open up some of their other churches here. And they lock those at night because they're afraid somebody's going to come in and steal all their gold. Yeah. All right. Now, okay, so I chose that profession, the heck with it. And I just wanted to make that example about why I spend a lot of time. And I am going to do 2 really serious shows this week on Tony Alamo and Tupper Saucy. So you don't forget about it. Because I find people these days, there's so much, like all that stuff being sent to me this week. How can I absorb all that? Well, let me do a quick analysis of a couple of my shows I recently did. You may have, like I said, I put coffee, I get hot coffee, and then I plan to drink it, and then it sits next to me, and I start my show. That's what I mean. Never plan anything. It doesn't work, but I'm going to take a sip. It's still a little warm. Anyway, that'll get me through the next 10 minutes. However, let me make this really simple. Now, since I dealt in this area of information my whole life, I've accumulated a lot of it. I don't know if I've done any good with it, because I've subscribed to the Mark Twain quote here, and let me read it to you. And Twain said, listen, I've not professionally dealt in truth. Many, when they come to die, have spent their whole life, have spent all the truth that was in them, and entered the next world as paupers. I have saved up enough to make an astonishment there. And he also says, the truth is the most valuable thing we have, but let's economize it. And he spent a lot of time quoting what truth is, and it's interesting. And I'll get into some later because, I looked on the website. I said, okay, how many? There's 10,000 on one website, 10,127 quotes about the truth. The first one, guess what it was? It was Marilyn Monroe's quote. I'm going, and if you read the quote, it's insane. I mean, not that she wasn't a cool-looking girl and the whole shot and probably was killed by some CIA thug, and Elton John wrote a song about her, etc., etc. I mean, her quote about the truth had nothing to do about it. It was something about her mixed-up life. It had nothing to do about the truth, but they put that there because I guess that would draw people to read because it was a pretty picture of her. But that's America. Now, back to how to deal with this. All right, now I'm going to go through a lot of stories in a minute that came across my desk after I tell you how to deal with this. And the reason I want to tell you how to deal with it is I do it. And so try it. But you're going to have to do a lot of research to get to that point because when I go to these websites, I see a lot of piecemeal stuff out there all the time. I mean, guys are out there explaining to me about all these false flags. They're explaining to me about all of the situations of the terrorist organizations. They're explaining to me why America is losing its rights. They're explaining to me everything about this Jade Helm thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I had a couple nice conversations with people about it this weekend. And, it seems to me that probably what will happen in Jade Helm is they will hire some undercover guys to incite violence against one of the military operations and blame it on the people. And they'll get their little martial law going. That's what they do all the time. You see, if you have a real gripe against the country, right? Let's say you go to Baltimore and you want to see justice because somebody was killed by the police. Okay, let's just use that hypothetical situation. And perhaps I'm just pulling it out of a hat, not to say it happened or didn't happen. And people say you got to get a license now to have a protest or what. Well, anyway, let's say you go peacefully and you want to protest this. Well, what happens is the powers that be do not want to get the real point across. So what they'll do is they'll put a few undercover guys in there to start throwing rocks at the police or start yelling at the police. Then they'll grab those people, pull them away. You'll never see them again. And then other people will get arrested, and they've incited that, so that really what happens, your protest, your peaceful protest, is turned into a violent protest against the authority of God and man and the great country of the United States. And that's exactly how they work. And I just will show you a story later that was sent to me where a union group in Canada proved that. And if it happens there, you know it happens here, because the Vatican taught them all. No doubt in my mind about that stuff. Now, whether that's truth or not, somebody will say, yeah, it's true. No, it's not true. Let's just say it's factual. Okay, so how do you deal with it? I tell people this. Okay, there's 100 million different books out there. And if you go to them, each one has their idea of what truth is. So how the hell are you going to know? You're just going to pick one that you think you like. Okay? It's like going to the store shopping to get a tie. There's 100 million ties. That one's got to be the best because it looks good. And a lot of times people pick the truth because it looks good. Sounds good. Smells good. Feels good. Everything looks like, and it comes from a big, and you bought it at one of those rich stores, so it's got to be good. It's got to be the truth. The point I'm trying to make is, I think that you got to whittle it down and state, like he said, economize what's really going on. So, as a confirmed, I was a Catholic at one time, and Catholicism drives you crazy after a while, and I became an atheist for a while. That's what Catholicism does. It drives you nuts, and then you say, hey, this is all goofy, and you never get to the point. So I just started to question everything. I mean, I would question whether, I'd look at myself and I'd say, is that me today? I mean, it got to a point where it's insane, right? So and you question everything around you. And plus, I chose to be a journalist, so that was you don't want to be inflicted with that disease. Now, here goes. So, out of the clear blue sky, I decided to read the Bible. Now, the next thing you're going to think is that I'm one of these crazy born-again Christian evangelists, because that's what the Vatican wants you to think about anybody who picks up that book, and it's not true. Now, don't tell me they haven't infiltrated many churches and they create these crazy evangelists out there. And some of them you see on TV. And they've created a lot of them, and I've went over their names. And they, these are the guys that give you satanic symbols, and they practice Kabbalah, but they say they love Jesus. So, people that are kind of on the fence about God think that once they pick up that book, they're going to turn into these crazy people. Well, that's good ploy. So the Vatican does this. They say, don't worry about that. You don't have to read that book. We'll explain it to you, because we are the representatives of God on earth. Now, there's a lot of Vatican people that can't, former Catholics that don't believe in it, so what they become are New Age people. Little do they know, the New Age movement was created by the same group. Look up Father Pierre de Chardin, a Jesuit priest, and you'll see that's where the New Age came from. So they got you there. So the point I try to make is to people, look, if you have a strong faith, and there are people out there, I encourage Bible reading. If your faith isn't strong, and you have none, I encourage reading it. Because you can figure out the questions, these simple questions, and they really are simple questions that we ask on this. You know how many, the internet and what the questions of this world are very simple today. Why has the New World Order taken over? Why are we seemingly living in a world full of evil? And what do we do to live with it and change it? So, you can read 100 million books, but I've only found one that has given me an answer that I can live with. And I didn't read it because I wanted to evangelize it to people. I didn't read it for that reason. I can evangelize about Vatican stuff without reading the Bible because, man, they are a group that I learned about 7 years ago. Well, I lived there 7 years. And I learned about it maybe when? In the 80s. And never thought it could be that bad here. Little did I know, I should have stayed there. Because it's worse here than it is over there. But here's the point. I could do that without. But what did I really see as what is this New World Order and what is evil? And I recommend, you can read all the fancy quotes about truth, and you can read all the fancy, you can read Brave New World, you can read all the great writers, and there's a lot of good stuff, and you're going to get a lot of good things. You'll even get a lot of good things from non-great writers that send me stuff, just average people like me that are interested, like I'm going to give you some things in the second half hour regarding, police riots and how they use undercover agents, about our food supply, about what else? So about how Fox News put up a picture of the riots in when it first rioted in these Baltimore. I guess Baltimore was the truth, right? I guess it did happen. Boy, I thought it was hypothetical. Well, maybe it is hypothetical. Well, Fox News thought it was because they put up a picture the first night, and guess what? The big story. Look at Baltimore. They had this city in flames with a McDonald's arch. Turns out the picture was from Venezuela. Yeah, it wasn't even from America. And when they were pinned about it, after thousands and maybe millions of people saw it, they said, "Oh God, we made a mistake." Because 10,000 people called in and said, "Hey, listen, this isn't even Baltimore." Give me a break. How much, that's a mistake nobody makes. I don't give a darn who you are. I've been in the journalism profession. That was orchestrated. So you know what they're all about. So I'll get into that. But this idea, and I got 3 minutes here, and I said I'd synthesize why it's easy to figure this out. Because, look, people that have a strong faith, okay? And now there are some that I found in certain ministries that can figure this out because they're not going to ministries that have been infiltrated by the Vatican, that change what they hear on the pulpit. So there's a lot of Protestants in this country who think they have strong faiths, but are making that decision on without all the facts. So do they really understand? And is it just like a child? Like, is it any different than if you're 3 years old and you believe in God because you were told? But you grow up, and there's more expected of you as you get older. So the choice they've made, I don't think, holds any water. Until they take that one book and take it from take your faith, put it here. If you don't have any faith and you're an atheist, you can still get the same truth out of that book. And whether I said truth or not, it's fact. This was a compilation of things that you can learn about, and it talks about the major subjects. It doesn't talk about Charles Manson, or it doesn't take, it's not a journalistic compilation, but what it is a way to look back at history and figure out these difficult questions, at least giving you something in your memory bank that's different from the polluted Christianity that the Vatican has portrayed for thousands of years. Now, I'm running out of time again, so I'm going to do it in the first 3 minutes of the next show, of the next half hour. And then we'll get into all these crazy stories that came across my desk, and you'll see that you can do both. You can understand really where evil comes from, or give you a better idea so that you can live with this stuff, and then understand what's going on around the world today. Sounds pretty easy. It isn't bad. Now I can get back to my coffee here and take I always take a 3-minute break. And that 3 minutes goes by quick. But anyway, back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
Have you read the last prophecy? The book of Revelation. Who can understand it? We believe that God wrote His Word to us for our understanding and salvation, on which so many diverse Christians believe in the same fundamental principles. But not so the prophecy of Daniel and Revelation. Has God, by His Holy Spirit, given a sure interpretation to these mysterious passages through the centuries? Yes, He has. The only difference to the individual is on which side of each prophecy he stands in time. before or after, past or future. The last prophecy is as much a book of history, fulfilling prophecy, exposed in such a way as to leave you without a doubt. Because we are living near the end of this era, we should be able to understand the substantial amount of the revelation which has already come to pass. Get the book, The Last Prophecy, which is an abridgment of E.B. Elliott's Jorge Apocalypticae, the most comprehensive work ever done on the Revelation, condensed down to a mere 258 pages. You will come away with numerous, incontrovertible revelations into the book of Revelation to easily dispel all of the futurist confusion which has become so popular over the last century. Visit the shopping page at FirstAmendmentRadio.com to get your copy. Get 20% off when you buy it at the FirstAmendmentRadio.com shop.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit DiscountGoldandSilverTrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, back for the second half hour, and I guess you know that, so why do I say it? I guess just to get rolling. You know, you got to get your mind moving a little bit. I could just start, Greg, or should you just start over? Well, yeah, why don't I? You know what? Why should I even deal with these questions? You know, like the New World Order that's been really the Old World Order, and where does evil come from? And I'm not the only one that probably thinks about it, and most people probably are smarter than me to just go, you know what, I'm just going to become a baseball player, or I'm just going to do something and forget about it. That's the way the world is, and I'm just going to try to make it through and do the best I can, and if I'm good, then maybe that'll catch on and everybody. But it never seems to, because we are controlled by really a 1% group of people that make it miserable and then try to depict everybody as being evil. Now, listen, somewhere, somehow you got to think about it. So I figured so I'm bold enough to tell you, yeah, I'm going to give you an answer that maybe you can use and put it alongside everything else. I'm not saying believe it. I'm not saying it's the truth, because we know how many definitions of the truth there are. And I don't want to come across like that, because I'd like people to go into it with their own mind and maybe come across with something that can help you get through this world and get you to the next one. You know, but not to rush it along. You know, there's a time you should, I'm not saying, revolt against the world and cut your life short. They'll kill you, and then you can go to the next life. No. I think it's important to understand. And sometimes, I'm going to make a statement. I think understanding's more important than love. Yeah. Because how can you love if you don't understand? So what do you want? My dog's going, I got to get outside when he said that. I can't take. He says love's more important than understanding. I can understand, Max. You want to go out? Go ahead. He didn't agree with me with that statement, and many people probably won't. They'll say love's more important than understanding. I just say understanding, and to understand, is more important than love, because how can you love if you can't understand? So that's what we try to do, understand. And why would I even decide to understand what evil is and what the New World Order is? Because I was a stupid journalist that had to figure it out. Now, I know it's probably better just to go on and lead a, average life. And I don't mean being a journalist isn't average, but it's really a profession at the top levels is as corrupt as they come. And you can see it today. And I'll show you a couple stories that make me believe that. But anyway, here is what, can you believe this stuff you get in an email? I just clicked my email. Governor Scott Walker has made you a friend. I don't want to, how can I be his friend over the internet? I mean, it's ridiculous. Give me a break, Governor Walker. If you want to be my friend, come over and talk to me. Then maybe we can strike up a friendship. But I'm not going to be your friend here. That's the kind of crazy stuff you get now. And he's in Texas anyway. That's too far to go. But so let me explain it. If you take certain things in the Bible as having historical value, it's a book that can lead you to understand what is going on in the world today and how to live with it. Now, here's exactly what I did. I went through a number of, people that have read the story of Cain and figured out where evil comes from, how it's passed on to this day, and I come to the conclusion that I gotta remember that, and I gotta think about it, because it gives you the whole story. So what I'm going to tell you is go to my website at arcticbeacon.com, and you're going to see a show, and it's in a gallery at the top. There's pictures that go on and off. Put your little cursor in the middle, click on the story, or it might even be below on the front page, and then if you go down the bottom, you can scroll the other 100 pages on my site, older shows, and get the one about the mark of Cain. And that'll give you an idea where evil comes from and how it's passed on through the years and what you can do to live with it. And what the New World Order is all about. And once you figure that out, all the other questions seem pretty simple to me. Now, that's a bold statement, but I'm making it. And let's go on to other things today. All right. Story that struck me as the most interesting one was this one that someone sent me about the catastrophes hitting our food production. And we always talk about what goes on with human beings in this country. But what about the animals? And I'm not talking about the dog that you take care of. That's probably, lives better than most people in Africa. I'm talking about our food supply. I guess we should all go to I could probably, if it got down to it, eat vegetables and figure out ways to get protein. But let's look at what somebody sent me. And this week, he said, we have learned that more than 7 million turkeys and chickens have already been killed as a result of the devastating bird flu outbreak here in the United States. I didn't know about that. But this particular strain of bird flu, I guess they're too busy covering, like today. I bet you if you go to one of those network stations, there's some other terrorist activity or the police doing something in some state like Texas or something. And you'll see they'll spend hours on that. I guess this is old news. But this bird flu, again, has already spread to the states of Minnesota, Iowa, California, Arkansas, Idaho, Kansas, Missouri, North Dakota, Oregon, South Dakota, Washington, and Wisconsin. And scientists are mystified as to why it is moving so rapidly. What we don't know is that this bird flu has the potential to kill an entire flock of chickens or turkeys in just 48 hours. This pandemic is quickly becoming a major national crisis all by itself. But when you combine this with the other disasters hitting our food supply, it's a very troubling picture. If you can't eat, you can't live. It'd be nice if you didn't have to eat, wouldn't it? What the heck would I do then when I was in Italy all those years? Nothing. That's why I did there most of the time is eat. But before we talk about that bird flu stuff, again, remember doing this, is this deja vu all over again like Yogi Berra said? I remember talking about this years ago, 10 years ago. But let's talk about other stuff that's going on, this other assault. Due to the worst drought in the recorded history of, guess what? You know what state I'm talking about, California. It's turning into a desert in many places. And considering the fact that California produces nearly half of the fresh produce grown in the entire nation. So now I can't eat, if I can't eat vegetables, what am I going to have to eat grubs? It's a very frightening thing. Prices for fruits and vegetables are already gone up. No kidding. Yeah, I go to the grocery store. You don't have to tell me that this is always going up. Okay. Now, what about this multi-year drought in the Southwest? Has also crippled impact on many ranchers. At this point, the size of the U.S. cattle herd is the smallest that it has been since the 50s. Good for the cows. Good for the cows. They're going, thank God. It's the smallest. Maybe I can live a little longer. The price of beef has doubled since the last recession. And every vegetarian's going, hey, yay. But what about if you don't have any vegetables, what the heck are you going to eat then? And fruit. Over the past couple of years, but you know what? Somebody just emailed me who's listening. Yeah, and said this. And I've gotten emails like this before. I grow my own food. Oh, yeah? Wait till the chemtrails, wait till your soil, wait till it's all contaminated, and the chemtrails, this barium and aluminum, seeps down into your garden. And wait till you don't have any water, then what are you going to do? You can't, you know what, on your plants. You know what I'm talking about. The multi-year drought in the Southwest. Okay. Over the past couple of years, what's this? The porcine epidemic diarrhea? I didn't know about this one. Wiped out approximately 10% of the entire pig population. This particular plague seems to have subsided, at least for now. But I'm sure it's going to crop up again. But scientists tell us that it could come back strong at any moment. Oh boy. Think we got problems? Look at these pigs. Look at the cows. Even if you're a plant, you're having trouble in this world. Now this guy said, now listen to this. And I can detest, I just got rid of a fishing boat because most of the fish in the Pacific is going to be polluted anyway. And I was talking to fishermen about this story, and they'd say, well, it's better to eat smaller fish because they're not catching as much radiation. Now, a lot of the fishermen don't want to talk about it because they got to sell their fish, and they can't, if, their boats start shining from radiation, they're not going to be so you're going to have to go a little bit farther. And there's a lot of researchers, scuba divers that are interested in the environment bring back a lot of truthful information. But anyway, the sardine population off the West Coast has declined by 90. I like sardines. They're good for bait. They're also good eating, I think. 91% since 2007. I didn't know that. This is having a devastating effect on the food chain in the Pacific. Yeah, and don't think about just us. People eating. There's a huge food chain underneath the ocean. I'm a scuba diver. Thank God I'm not a part of that food chain. And a couple times I thought I was. But there's a big, huge thing going on down there. And if there's radiation and, fish coming up looking like two-headed monsters, we got problems. Now, speaking of the Pacific, a whole host of other sea creatures appear to be dying off in large numbers as well. And I've got an article. I don't even want to go through this because it's too devastating to do right here. I can't. But just Google sea creatures disappearing in Pacific. Down in Florida, the citrus greening disease has hit the citrus industry extremely hard. Price of Florida oranges has approximately doubled over the past 12 years, and crops keep getting even smaller every year. And, could chemtrails have anything to do with all this garbage? But we still allow our government, you believe what your government says, as they fly their little, big, huge airplanes at 32,000 feet, dousing the planet with chemicals. But yeah, they tell you the truth, don't they? And when you try to get to the truth, which I did 10 years, I just wanted to find out whose planes they are. I'm not talking about, these deep esoteric, these deep reasons about, deep truthful answers. I just wanted to know, hey, are those your airplanes? And you would not believe the lines you get. They lock the doors. You can't even, I said, hey, I'm a taxpayer. How come I can't get on the military base to ask you these questions? This was before ISIS. Apparently, they consider you a terrorist, but they want your money. Oh, yeah, and they want you to believe them. But the big squeeze right now is on the citrus industry, and that it's on the vegetable industry, it's on the cow industry, the pig industry. Florida governors have yielded far fewer oranges over the past decade to citrus greening, resulting in less juice. Who needs vitamin C anyway, right? Now, what's this one? Listen to this one. A plague known as the TR4 fungus has hit global banana production in a big way. Now, I said a long time ago, I've always liked bananas. And years ago, they taste. I buy a banana now, and I don't taste anything, And I like to put bananas in cereal and mix them with strawberries. I could live on that. Now, the plague, this is known as the TR4 fungus, has hit the global banana production in a big way. And the nightmare fungus may eventually, and this is what you get on these CNBC, NBC affiliate on the news, strictly 24-hour news station. They may eventually totally wipe out the variety of bananas that we commonly eat today. And it says, banana lovers take note. Okay, I'm a banana lover. The world's supply of fruit is under attack from a fungus strain that could wipe out the popular variety that Americans eat. It doesn't taste any good anymore anyway, so let's start a new one. Can you believe that? Well, on top of that, we got another problem. We got, go back to the bird flu, then let's get on. Because I'm telling you, this is just probably the tip of the iceberg of what's really going on. 3.8 million hens, according to USA Today, will be destroyed at one Iowa farm alone to keep this flu from spreading. I didn't even know there were that many hens in the country. I wonder how many chickens there are. I know there's a lot of birds flying around, but, I feel sorry for them because they're getting polluted from all those chemtrails as well, and they don't have any say about it. All right, here's the answer. There's 50 million hens in Iowa and supplies nearly 1 in every 5 eggs consumed in the United States. I didn't know that. Okay. Unless you got your own chicken, you might be in trouble. All right, let's move on because there's so much more. There's problems with the turkey population. There's problems at the poultry farms in Netherlands, Great Britain, and Germany. This isn't just in our country. And the mystery of how these deadly bugs have infected so many turkey farms in such a short period of time has alarmed scientists. Oh, God. I mean, are you going to believe that? Alarm them? They're causing it. All right. Let's get to another story here. Let me see how much time I got. About 10 minutes. All right. 2 quick stories. Let me get to them. All right. Here's the first one. And you got to read this is interesting. The police, they pose. This topic came across my desk, and this topic is what we talk about, says an investigative journal radio listener to me. Police and police agents posing as rioters and provoking and staged riots. It happens all the time in the U.S., and this time Canadian police are nabbed red-handed. Here are the facts caught on a video distributed by Canadian union officials. It was picked up by Brass Check, so check it out. And so I got that video that was sent to me on there. It's about 9 minutes long, and it actually nabs them, and union officials who admit it, and even a former police officer in the Canadian police force admitted it, that they do this. So what they really did was there was a peaceful union violation to get wages for the people. The police show up. They have 3 of their thugs in bandanas, and they were the ones that started throwing rocks. Then the police took them, and somebody got a picture of their boots, and they were all wearing the same police boots. That gives you an idea that maybe they're together. Now, when union officials got on TV and said, listen, these guys, we wanted a peaceful riot. We wanted a peaceful rally. But the police caused the riot, and then some of us got arrested along with these men that posed it. But they are policemen, undercover cops. They're not with us. when the police and the authority and the mayor or whatever is the head of that province said, they said, no, we do not use undercover agents to instigate riots. And then when asked, who are these 3 guys that were arrested? They said, no comment. Okay. Typical double talk. But anyway, you can Google Canadian police are nabbed red-handed riots, police riots, Canadian union officials catch police undercover agents causing riots. You'll get the video. It's 9 minutes long. It's well worth reading. Next story. This one I mentioned in the first half hour, but let's just talk about it. And this is this is what you're. There's so many things on the air, false pictures, that this one shows that they do it, and they do it. Probably they did it in 9/11. They've done it probably at most every false flag event that you've ever seen. Sandy Hook, the Boston bombing. It goes on and on. Phony pictures to make you believe what's really not there. And this Fox News, I'm looking at a picture now of a city. The whole city's aflame, and you see 2 McDonald's, the arches. All right? And Fox News posted this picture right after the first day, I think it was on April 27th, showing the Baltimore riots. The only problem is it wasn't from Baltimore. That's right. The image was taken from Venezuela. But for those who accepted Fox's rendition, which was millions of people, the story uncritically, the image became burned in their minds as being a scene of devastation in Baltimore. On April 27th, local Fox 13 claimed the photo of the fires burning everything except the golden arches of McDonald's was Baltimore in flames. That's how they had it. But one couple guys who really don't get along with Fox too well and say, hey, you guys are giving us some wrong pictures, noted that one viewer, the image, placed it right away. He said, no, wait a minute, this isn't Baltimore. They thought the image looked familiar and pointed out that the story on the Fox affiliate was not Baltimore at all, but Venezuela. Then thousands of people started proving it. Thousands sent things in, and Fox then, after several, I don't know how long, millions of people viewed it, they took it down saying, oh, sorry, it was a mistake. They admitted it. But they actually told you BS again, because it wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. It was an intentional mistake. This isn't the first time the mainstream media is caught doing this, and it won't be the last. So I chimed in with my ideas, and I said, first of all, I am of the Investigative Journal. I've been doing the show, and I'm not an amateur media critic, because now listen to what I'm going to get at, because they always claim these amateurs don't know anything. Well, I'm not an amateur. I was trained as a journalist, and I have a law degree. I worked in the mainstream media for years. And here's what I said about this. I worked in the corrupt news world for many years, learning the hard way. I learned back in the 80s the American newspaper in Rome, when I worked there, was controlled and funded by the CIA. I'm sure what Fox did here is just the tip of the iceberg. Now, how about, somebody sent me this amateur video, but it's better than anything you get on Fox, or this on CNN. So I didn't want to leave the left-wing group out here. I'm not just, dousing gasoline on the flames of Fox. But they just, CNN's just as bad. They just give you the whole different, they want people to be liberals, they want you to be conservatives, and then they fight, and then they get what they want. But how about this big shot Anderson Cooper of CNN? Somebody sent me this interview. You got to go to my website and look at this video. You can get it. Just Google Anderson Cooper confronted on CIA media connections. And this kid sent me this video. He's an amateur journalist, and he questioned, he was at the Baltimore riots, right? Or the false flame riots. And Cooper was there. And as he points out, had 8 guards around him. And when questioned, Cooper wouldn't answer him, and he laughed. He said, oh, that's ridiculous. And then he would not answer some really hard questions, and he kind of was protected by... Why does a journalist have 8 bodyguards? Because he's not a journalist, really. He's posing as one. So how about Big Shot Anderson Cooper of CNN when questioned about his CIA connections from this amateur journalist? Here's how they handled the situations, and I told you, paraphrased, what you'll see in that 9-minute video. But it seems he doesn't like talking about it. And my take on Cooper is I rather enjoy, and sometimes get a big laugh, about how he hides behind his real bosses in the CIA in Rome. And without Anderson, though, thank you, and others like him, thank you all, I would never have made the choice to look for the real stories. They covered up, I try to uncover. Thanks, Anderson. Keep up the good work. And my only wish is you would come clean about supposed truth-telling like you did when you came out of the homosexual closet. And that's my take. And make sure you get that, because you're going to see what you listen to every night. And I'm sure people, they will continue to listen to him. And he's got a big following. But realize what he's really saying. Now I was going to get into a bunch of quotes on what the truth is, but I've run out of time. Anyway, we'll continue tomorrow on the Investigative Journal. Good night.